Uyghur ex-officials are given the death sentence over a Uyghur textbook. Welcome to China Uncensored. I'm Chris Chappell. It's no longer a secret that China is giving special treatment to ethnic minorities, like the Uyghurs in Xinjiang. In the last few months, countries around the world have started calling that special treatment genocide. And last month, the US and its allies sanctioned Chinese officials for genocide. Genocide includes separating Uyghur families and throwing them into concentration camps, or forcing birth control on Uyghur women to suppress the population. And let's not forget, killing Uyghurs and harvesting their organs. And then there's the cultural genocide, like silencing the Uyghur language. For example, in the internment camps, Uyghurs are forced to speak Mandarin and not their native language. You see this? Why, this is just a language class. Today's lesson, how to say, "Thank you, Chinese Communist Party, for giving me all this free re-education." But it's not enough for Uyghurs, including Uyghur children, to learn Mandarin. They also need to learn Chinese Communist Party propaganda, with a healthy dose of historical revisionism. What happens if they're not learning to love the motherland? The death sentence. The Chinese regime has recently handed death sentences to Uyghur former officials for writing and publishing school textbooks designed to split the country. 2 former education officials were given suspended death sentences, while 5 more Uyghurs, including book editors, were given long prison sentences, some up to life in prison. Now, in China, a suspended death sentence means it could be changed to life in prison instead, which is the good news. So what were these men's crimes? They were accused of adding separatist ideas to Uyghur language textbooks for elementary and secondary school kids, starting in 2002. Those textbooks were then used in Xinjiang for more than a decade, before authorities changed their mind in 2016. And decided they were, in fact, separatist books that harm young people. 25 million copies of the textbook were printed and distributed in Xinjiang, and tens of thousands of Uyghur educators have used it for 13 years, causing extremely serious harm. The son of one of the imprisoned book editors pushed back on the Chinese regime's claims. He points out that these textbooks were approved by the state for 13 years. And he says China is trying to erase history and write a new narrative. What? Erasing history and writing a new narrative? Does that sound like something the Chinese Communist Party would do? But the party is going even further to rewrite the history of Xinjiang. I'll show you how after the break. Welcome back. Former Uyghur education officials have been thrown in prison for an old textbook featuring no longer approved history. And now, Chinese state-run CGTN has released a documentary film about them. A full hour of villainizing these two-faced Uyghurs.
Murad Shakbujang says even the term two-faced doesn't properly describe such persons. They are the enemy in the shadows.
The documentary, of course, includes televised forced confessions from these enemies in the shadows.
总想着利用党和人民赋予的权利，把我的这种民族情绪，甚至一些极端的错误认识，传播给更多的维族人，从思想上控制他们，从小来影响他们，让他们成为分裂分子。
By framing these Uyghur officials as hardened criminals, Chinese state-run media is attempting to justify the party's genocide of the Uyghur people. They had to do it to fight terrorism, guys. Terrorism like showing a medal worn by a historical figure.
这个图片，这国徽是东土斯坦的共和国的一个国徽，它出现在这个教科书里面，本来就是不对的。
The East Turkestan Republic was a short-lived state that occupied the Upper West region of Xinjiang briefly from 1944 to 1949. The man pictured in the textbook was one of the presidents of the East Turkestan Republic. But no one is supposed to know that. We shouldn't be teaching this history at all, especially since, according to Chinese state-run media, there has never been an East Turkestan state. Really, it's much safer for society if children lose all connection with their cultural roots.
这个它是7个月娃的英雄一个姑娘这样的一个虚构的一个故事。当时的那些汉族的士兵逼他们逼到那个山崖，然后跳那个山崖跳刺的，为了他们就保卫他们的家园什么。民族仇恨了，对于那个啥学生的也是一个不良的一个影响。
Look, everyone knows that the only true Chinese history is the one where the Han Chinese are the heroes. The documentary claims that these Uyghur textbooks are directly responsible for what the documentary refers to as the July 5th incident. But the outside world calls the July 5th incident the Urumqi massacre, because Chinese soldiers massacred people. It happened after ethnic riots broke out in Xinjiang's capital, Urumqi, in 2009. According to witness reports, an estimated 1,000 or more people, most of them ethnic Uyghurs, were shot dead during that 1.5-hour period of time. And after massacring a bunch of Uyghurs, the Chinese Communist Party imprisoned thousands more. And they locked down the entire region of Xinjiang for months, including cutting off the internet entirely. But maybe the Chinese Communist Party is onto something here. Children's books are definitely the main source of terrorism and separatism. And the only solution is to lock up an entire ethnic group, at least until the Chinese regime writes new children's books, like Horton Hears a Separatist and reports him to the Neighborhood Committee, where the wild splitists are James and the Giant Hegemon, or my personal favorite, Oh, the re-educational places you'll go. See, with these two-faced officials safely behind bars, the Chinese Communist Party can finally lead the Uyghurs to a brighter future with patriotic children's books.
这是1年级上册的维吾尔文语文教科书，上面有国徽，国徽用维语说是 Devlet Gerbi， 有国旗，用维语说是 Devlet Bayrağı， 后面有我们是中国人，用维语说是 Biz Jongoluk。这是升旗仪式，用维语说是 Bayrak çıkarış murasimi。
我们传递给学生什么样的信息？想通过这些图片，
意识到自己是中华人民共和国的公民，意识到新疆是祖国的不可分割的一部分。
What a happy ending! Everything is rectified. And the Uyghur children can learn to dance like the happy ethnic minority they're supposed to be. Which means it's a perfect time to watch China's new hit musical inspired by the Hollywood movie La La Land. It's called The Wings of Songs and showcases the beautiful, rich life of ethnic minority groups in Xinjiang, including all of their happy ethnic dancing. I mean, it totally works. It's just like the sound of music. But in the end, Captain Von Trapp joins the Nazis. And now it's time for me to answer a question from a member of the China Uncensored 50-Cent Army, fans who support the show on the crowdfunding website Patreon. Ringleader asks, Hey Chris, how would Xi the Pooh react if the US and or the UK established a full embassy and or military base in the free and independent country of Taiwan? Well, I know how they would feel. The feelings of the Chinese people would be deeply hurt. What would the Communist Party do about it? Right now, there's not a whole lot they can do. They would make a big stink about it. The Foreign Affairs Ministry would make all kinds of statements. There'd be angry tweets. And you know what? There might even be some sanctions. Some US officials might not be allowed to travel to China anymore. I also imagine there would be a continuation of military maneuvers around Taiwan that would quietly shrink over time. Because even though Xi Jinping might say the US and China are equal now, the truth is a little different. However, if the US shows weakness and the Chinese regime is able to take over Taiwan, the power would shift. If the Chinese regime even is able to partially replace the US dollar with its own currency, the power will also shift. We just did a full episode about that. The Communist Party's goal is to replace the US as the world's biggest superpower. There's still time to stop that from happening, but not a lot of time. Thanks for your question, Ringleader, and thank you for watching. Be like Ringleader and support China Uncensored through the crowdfunding website Patreon. Go to patreon.com/China Uncensored. The link is below. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.